All jokes aside, you know how niggas be like, I'm this and that for life, this and that for life. I'm on West for life, nigga, this a blood oath. Hey, yo, Madara, here go a clash for you, my nigga. 140 for the rebel. The world turned its back on me. I'm a cripple. We got soldiers, he got soldiers, but I got different ones. Ain't no way out, I tell you once. Don't pray for nothing, send a curse. We can't forgive what's forbidden. Remain in them trenches. Trust in the Lord, but please forgive me for the times that I did. If rank is given, have your respect to your apprentice. Be about your business. This loyalty's a death sentence. Look, trying to pick up with a blind friend. They said there'll be many mansions. I'm just grinding for my time share. Them devils ain't playing fair. They hunt you like bad pal, but ain't no getting out the game like Jumanji. You take that oath, it's a Dundee. They try to deal death to a priest. You won't make it out in one piece. So you can stand. Just make sure you got the heart. Say your name 3 times and it's death do us part. So how you feel about this truth I done shown? This ain't the life you think, little nigga. I should want. Even your own people go this zone. And the Lord said they hate you for my name. So you better keep it on. Ain't no more guessing. Ain't no more questions. Make sure my election till I'm tucked away like George Jetson. Murder for capital, now it's murder at the Capitol. The world in amazement, we like fucking raise it. I pity those watching life as it goes by. Be giving mercy in this life, I don't know why. It pump smoke, never try to. They dead at home, my brother be the dead, it's all I don't. The photo, salute my nigga, salute my nigga. They like, how you stay focused? I told them I'm motivated cause of you, my nigga. Brotherhoods and weapons, still got weapons on the scene. Now I never do my niggas like Bishop did Raheem. Never mind in all beliefs, they under anesthesia. Shorty say she leaving, said she wanna let that love go. Told I let that love grow. But if I bring you to my bed, that's a blood So, how you feel about this truth I done shown? This ain't the life you think, little nigga. I should want. Even your own people go this zone. And the Lord said they hate you for my name, so you better keep it on. Yeah.
All right, Shalom, Israel. Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. It's the Friday night Lashawan Qadash class, where we break down the scriptures from a linguistics perspective. As you already know, we've been teaching Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans their culture since 1969. So as you already know, we got the scripture breakdown class, brotherhood, law class. And just as important, this language is just as important to understanding and learning our culture as, understanding the law, understanding brotherhood and the spirit behind the law. All of those things. All right. So every Friday, every Friday you got any Lashawan Qadash related questions or Holy Tongue in the English, what the world calls the Hebrew. You got any questions related to the Hebrew, the Lashawan Qadash? Every Friday, you go ahead and put them in the chat. If you're in class, you go ahead and raise your hand. Make sure you got your learning utensils with you. So that you could take notes, follow along, and we can all get our culture back and learn as a family. Salakia, 1 second as I share my screen, find the scripture. All right, so for the past couple of weeks, we've been kind of doing some review. Let me make sure I got this correct. For the past couple of weeks, we've been doing some review. All right. So we kind of went into the prepositions again, just to do a quick recap on the prepositions, possessives, tenses, meaning like what's it called? The doing tense, the naming tense, all the things that pretty much all the things that you should already have in your notes that we've reviewed several times in the past, but we just touched on it again, you know what I mean? So that we can strengthen our foundation. And then we also added something. So for the, I think the past two classes revolved around past tense. That's one of the lessons that, Salakia, as I'm sharing my screen, was one of the lessons that we, Salakia. There we go. But it was one of the lessons that you know what I mean, I've been alluding to for the past couple months. I mean, just saying that we're gonna have to, it's gonna be something that we're gonna get into, something that we see often, especially as we're going over what we're gonna be going over during Sabbath service. You know what I mean? It's something that we see often, and a lot of times it trips brothers up because we haven't at the time we hadn't gone into it in depth. But it was just something that was pointed out, kind of briefly went over for the past couple of days, or for the past couple of weeks. We went into depth finally. You know what I mean? So last week and the week before we went into past tense. We used a couple of different examples. I believe the first week we used shamar and how to conjugate the verb shamar in past tense. The week after that, which was last week, we used another word. So instead of shamar, which means watch, we used ra'ah, which means see. And we did the same thing. How will we conjugate that verb into past tense? Just to, you know what I mean, get it under our belt, just to get familiar with it. And just like every other thing, like every week we go over the 4 steps. You know what I mean? That doesn't change. The 4 steps to read any Salakia. The 4 steps to read any Lashawan Qadash phrase doesn't change. So you got your 4 steps, your root, you look at your root word, or your Salakia. Every phrase either contains a combination of a root word, preposition, possessive, and some sort of tense, as the ones I mentioned before. You know what I mean? That doesn't change. Now, what we did the past 2 weeks was just add to it. You know what I mean? So you're going to be still following that same concept. It still is easy. The Lashawan Qadash is still as simple and easy to understand as it always has been. We're just adding concepts to our belt. You know what I mean? That's all you're doing. All right. So you still look at your prepositions and possessives. You know what I mean? Find out where they are in relation to the root word. And that's going to always be your bread and butter. You know what I mean? But as we learn and we're trying to grow our understanding of the Lashawan Qadash, I mean, you're just going to add this concept to your belt and use it in the exact same way. All right. So that's what we've been going over for the past couple of weeks. Now we're going to just read through the scriptures and just do what we've been doing, which was prior to us doing the review, we would just read what we were going into during Sabbath service. So we're going to jump back into that. And we're going to jump back into that. And Salakia, I just lost my train of thought. We're going to jump back. Oh, Salakia, go ahead. But we're going to jump right back into that. And as we're reading the Lashawan Qadash, you might now, when we see these examples, like the past tense, we might even see the next lesson we're going to go into, which is going to be future tense, I believe. We might see we might see these things that we went over, and now instead of being confused, we can recognize it and be able to break it down and understand what we're reading, why these prefixes and suffixes are there, how to pronounce things correctly. You know what I mean? Another thing we was talking about last week was context. A lot of times we'll look at something, and because we haven't seen certain concepts, we don't know how to apply those concepts when we see them. So we'll just read something and just, you know, read it from the point of view that we understand, from the things that we've learned, which is absolutely, you know what I mean, that's practical. But to make sure you're absolutely correct and absolutely precise when reading the Lashawan Qadash, You just want to add as many of these concepts to your belt as possible. And that's all the Lashawan Qadash is. It's just concepts. You know what I mean? That's why we go into these particular lessons. That's why we do these reviews over and over again, because again, the Lashawan Qadash, as you read it, is just reading concepts over and over. So like your brother in the chat had a question, said, what does atha mean? All right, atha just means you. It's the short story, or the short answer is atha just means, it's the formal way to say you. So like in the salute, we say Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Barak, atha. Right, that's just a formal way to say you. Right. If I'm not mistaken, it's a combination of the preposition a, which means I, and then tha, which is you. So from me to you. All right. So that's why we say it in our salute. Right. Yahweh, meaning the Most High's name. Bahashem, in the name, Yahweh Shai, of what the world calls Christ. Barak, bless you. So I'm saluting you. From this salute is from me to you. So that's the breakdown of what atha means. All right. If you need a little bit more, that's pretty much the most I can give on that. That's pretty much the breakdown. But let me know if you understand that, if that makes sense. And the water for the question. If you got any more questions, anybody got any more questions, feel free to just throw them in the chat. Until I start seeing questions, I'm gonna just go ahead and go through and just go through the Bible Hub. But if questions come in, I'll just stop where I'm at, address the question, and then get right back into where we left off. All right. But again, I just want to reiterate, as we going through these lessons, make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're writing them down. You know what I mean? So you got something to reference. You know what I mean? And that's gonna really help you. That's gonna really help you be able to retain. It's gonna help you be able to retain what you learn in class. I mean, brothers and sisters spend a lot of time in class, but I mean, that's tawab. You should be in class, but I mean, what use is it to you if you're not retaining any of the information? So I want to encourage brothers to take notes, ask questions. I mean, just have something that you could reference. It's only so much that you can remember. You know, it's a couple brothers that got an excellent memory. I'm not one of those brothers, and I'm sure a lot of brothers, you know what I mean? It's only so much that you can remember. So again, I encourage brothers to just take notes. Take notes, so when you see these concepts, it'll jog your memory. And if you don't remember something, you don't have to, you know what I mean? You have something to look at. All right. So, all right. So Sabbath service. Last week we left off on Genesis chapter 27 and verse 8. Let me see. Let me read it in English real quick, just so we can get some context. Let's see. Lock it. Genesis chapter 27 and verse 8. All right. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Verse 9. Go now to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats. So I'm going to read a little bit above. So I'm going to start at 3. Now, therefore, take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out into the field and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before thee. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison, and to bring it. 6. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speaking unto Esau, thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and make me savory meat, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord, before my death. All right, so this is just talking about you know what I mean? We I believe Officer Tapazar went over last week, where you know what I mean, Esau sold his birthright for, you know what I mean, the red pottage. And now it's time for the birthright or the blessing to be given. So, Salakia, who was it? Isaac. Salakia. Isaac is getting ready to, give the blessing. And Esau is, is about to, or he's about to, get it as if he didn't sell it. Which shows what kind of dishonest and disgusting bastard that Esau is, in his bloodline. So that's the context. All right. So moving forward, that's what we're going to be reading about. All right. And then, so now Rebecca, because the angel has dealt with Rebecca and told her that Jacob would be the one to receive the blessing instead of Esau. You know what I mean? So she's about to, give Jacob, she's about to give Jacob some instruction to make sure that, that Esau is not able to be what's it called? What's the word? Be able to be dishonest and try to cheat Jacob out of what's rightfully his. All right. So let me go back to the Hebrew. All right, the first part, I'm gonna just read it through, and then I'm gonna go back and let me expand this real quick. First part, I'm gonna just read it through, and then I'm gonna go back and then I'm gonna break it down. All right. So the book of Genesis, chapter 22 and verse 8 in the Hebrew. Wa aita bonya shemai bakwalia la ashar. So like la ashar anya matazawa afka salaki afka. All right, so
what's the last one?
Afka. I'm gonna read it one more time, and I'm gonna highlight and I'm gonna break down each line as I go through. All right. So of course, so wa aitha, right? You click on that concordance code. Aitha just means now, right? Used 411 times, so it's used pretty commonly. Aitha just means now, right? So wa aitha means salaki. Wa aitha means and now. You know what I mean? Wa, as we already know, is a preposition, means and, right? Wa aitha and now, right? As we said, Rebecca is giving Jacob these instructions, right? And now. And then Banya, Ban is son, Ya is me or my. As you can see in red, it says my son, Banya, my son, right? Like it's Shammai. Shammai means hear, right? You click on that concordance code and it'll say to hear. But here's the thing, you know what I mean? If you really truly hear, you know what I mean? Like it says in Deuteronomy chapter 28, you know what I mean? It says to hearken and to what does it say? To hearken diligently and to obey. You know what I mean? If you you know what I mean? If you truly have heard something, if you've heard the instruction that you've received, you're going to show an action. You know what I mean? Like the scriptures say, like your Christian pastor likes to twist up. You know what I mean? Faith without works is dead. So for you to show that you've heard something, you have to be obedient. All right. So that's how these two words correlate. You know what I mean? If I say something, if you get an order or if you get instructions to do something and then you don't follow the instructions, you know what I mean? You didn't really hear. All right. All right. So Shammai means hear and to obey. All right. Salakia. Bakwal is voice. Bakwal ya is my voice. Just like in the previous, you know what I mean? Just like in the previous phrase. Banya, that ya at the end as a possessive means me or my. You know what I mean? So Baqual is voice. Baqual ya is my voice. Right? And just a side note, you know what I mean? As you read the Lashawan Qadash, I mean, as you reading and whether you studying at home, which I encourage brothers to do, whether you reading just a couple you know what I mean, a couple pages, just like maybe you can start off with like maybe 2 or 3 pages a day. But as you read, as you get that repetition, you'll start to recognize these words and it'll make it easier to read. All right. But yeah, you'll start to just recognize these things because of all the repetition and the practice that you put in. All right. So Baqual, voice. Baqual ya, my voice. La ashar. All right. Ashar is a root word that means that. Right. All right. Or which. Or so, okay, you click the concordance code. It says who, which, that. All right. In this context, it would be that or which. All right. So la ashar. La is a preposition that means to. So la ashar means to that or to which. Right. Anya. Right. Anya means I. Right. That's the formal way, like we talked about earlier. Atha is the formal way to say you. Anya would be the formal way to say I or I am. All right. And then matazawa. Right. This matazawa comes from the root word mataza. You click the concordance code or salakia. Tazawa. Salakia. Tazawa. All right. So tazawa means to lay charge, to command, to order. Matazawa is a root word, or it's just an extended. It's just an extension of to lay charge, or it built from the root word tazawa, salakia. Right, and then athka. Right, this word, this ath, because of the word atha, a lot of times seeing the word ath can trip brothers up. Could trip brothers up because we're familiar with atha. All right, so whenever we see a ah and a tha next to each other, we want to pronounce it that way. But this word, you click this concordance code, and it'll always say untranslatable mark of the accusative case. To simplify it, the word ath just denotes proximity, right? It's just connecting one thing to another, right? Right. It typically stands alone. It rarely has like like here it has a it has a possessive at the end, which means you. But typically it stands alone. But I mean, sometimes you'll have a possessive at the end, or sometimes you'll have something attached to it, but it still means the same thing. It's just connecting one thing to another. I mean, the Rebecca is speaking to or laying charge to her son, who she's talking to. All right. So this author just connecting this this command, matazawa, to you, which will be Jacob, who she's talking to. All right. All right, verse 9. Let's see, let me get there with you. So verse 9, Lak na'a al ha taza'an wa kwak laya masham shanya ya Isayum Tabyum wa Aisha Athum Mata Salakia Ta'ayum la ab Salakia. La aba yaka ka ashar Salakia ahab. All right. All right. So I'm go back over it. Salakia. I can't remember if I said laka or lock. If I said laka, that was incorrect. I can't remember what I said, but this is lock. All right. Go comes from the root word halak. You click on the concordance code and it'll tell you. Halak means to go or walk, or typically most commonly used as walk. All right. The na'a is just another way to say now, or salaki. It's used as now, but in the context of like giving someone or as it says right here, to entreat, like you know what I mean, you're asking somebody, you're asking somebody to do something. All right. All means two, right? All, not to be confused with Allah, right? Which means power. We see all, and underneath it is in red, and it says two. You pronounce it as all, right? But if you see God or power or authority or messenger, one of those words, and it's on line next to each other, you'll pronounce it Allah, right? But that's just a different. Like we was talking about last week, you know how to pronounce certain things based on context, right? Ha taza'an. Taza'an, I believe, means sheep, or just refers to like small, yeah, there we go, small cattle, sheep and goats, flock. All right. So you might see this word, as the word flocks, lamb, sheep. You might see any of those words, you'll see taza'an. And I believe goat as well. I gotta look back into it. But definitely either the word sheep or flock, depending on, again, context. But taza'an means sheep or flock, right? Ha taza'an means is the flock, right? And then wakwak, kwak means to bring, right? Or to slack it, to take. Wakwak, right? It's another word that you get real familiar, especially when it's dealing with like in, I believe in Leviticus 23, which we read this past week during the memorial blowing the trumpets, when it's talking about like you know what I mean, giving an offering, right? When it's talking about giving an offering, you'll see like take two, like when we was reading the unclean laws in Leviticus, you know what I mean? Say you're unclean, and then you take this, and then you take this animal, and then you take this animal. That's where you see quak to mean take, right? So she's asking Jacob to take something from the flock, and we're gonna find out what she's asking him to take. All right. Laya, right? Laya means me or to me, Salakia. La means to, ya means me. All right. So she's asking Salakia. She's asking Jacob to bring her something. So bring to me or take to me. So she's asking him to take something from the flock and bring it to her. So to me. Again, this is her talking. All right. Masham. Let's see. Let's see why this is here. All right. Let's see. It's interesting. let's see. So it's saying that this word shum is used as there. I would have to ask and see what the correlation between, because shum, as we already know, also means name. All right, so I gotta. That's a question I would have to ask to figure out what the correlation is, if there's any correlation. But shum in this context is there, and mushum is from there. Ma means from, of, or from. Shum there, mushum from there. Shanya from the numbers lesson is 2, right? If you're not familiar with the numbers, I suggest you you know what I mean, get familiar with it, because again, that's gonna really help you be able to read the Lashawan Qadash and be able to identify these root words. So certain phrases, you know what I mean, certain phrases you won't have to get stuck on. You can just breeze right through because you know them. You know what I mean? And then Gadaya. Right, Gadaya is a young goat, or in English, a kid. A young goat is a kid. All right. And then Slovakia. Isayum. I believe this is the word for goat. Okay. Isa is the word for female goat. Isayum. That yum is just one of the tenses we were just talking about. You know what I mean? That'll be attached to a root word, which typically means plural. There's several different ways to say plural, but this is the most commonly used one. I mean, this is the one that brothers should be the most familiar with. Yum. All right. So Isa, yum. And then tab, yum. Right. This tabium is built off of the word tawab, right? But like we was talking about in previous lessons, a lot of times when we add tenses or anything, prepositions, possessive tenses, things like that, to a root word, sometimes that wa drops off in the middle, just as to you know what I mean, just to avoid confusion, right? Which is also, and I'm gonna bring it up every chance I get. You know what I mean? Every time I see it, I'm gonna bring it up just to show brothers. You know what I mean? Just to break that Christianity off of brothers' minds. Because a lot of times brothers are, you know what I mean, join Israelite groups, and you'll hear brothers saying shalom and all of that. Shalom is incorrect. You know what I mean? If you want to use it just in general, you know what I mean? If you want to be accurate according to how we use words in our culture, that wa would drop off. You know what I mean? So we don't say shalom for this reason, right? So shalom will be the correct thing, just like here. And I'll show you here. So the word is tabyum, but you click that concordance code and boom, the root word is tawab, but that wa drops off. You know what I mean? And that happens often. That's the same concept that you see with shalom, right? Brothers might, and I see it in brothers too. I see it when brothers read it, like read the word shalom in the scriptures, because we've been taught, you know what I mean? We don't greet one another with shalom. Brothers kind of stop, freeze up, and be like they don't want to read it. They feel uncomfortable reading it. But if it's in the scriptures, it's correct and it's used properly in its correct context. But just know, again, it's about the context, right? And the way we use it, like when we say peace to one another, peace, you know what I mean? It's shalom, right? Now, well, I'm gonna leave it right there just so we could move on. But you're gonna see this concept a lot, all right? I believe we might have, I think we saw it earlier as well. I forgot to mention, but you're gonna see this concept a lot, where the wa will drop off, or at the end of a word. Like I believe last week we used the word ra'ah, right? And I believe it had an extra ha at the end. It's the same concept. Anything extra or something that might be redundant or might cause confusion as you're building phrases, those extra characters drop off. You know what I mean? Because the point of our language is to be succinct and to be as effective as possible. You know what I mean? Where we at? Salaki. All right, so Tab Yum. Wa'a Aisha. All right. So I'm gonna start with the root word. All right. Aisha is a root word, how you would say do or make, right? All right. So that would mean that these two characters, Salaki, these two characters in the front, make sure y'all can see that. And if y'all having a hard time seeing it, just let me know if I gotta make an adjustment or something like that. All right, but so Aisha is the root word. Aisha means to do or make. So double check that, click that concordance code, do or make. It says it right there. You know what I mean? And just a sidebar, you wanna get in the habit of just clicking that concordance code as you're reading. That's why you want to read and go over what you're gonna be going through during Sabbath service beforehand, or just practice. Just, you know what I mean, go to a random book, chapter and verse, and just start reading it in Lashawan Qadash just to, you know what I mean, get that practice. But I would encourage brothers to just click the concordance code as you're reading so that you can understand how phrases are built. It'll also help build your vocabulary. All right. So Aisha means do or make. So these two characters in the front, you can usually assume are prepositions, right? And in this case, it's correct. So wa means and, a means I as a preposition. Now, this is one of those ones, like we went over in a review, it's one of those ones that are very rarely used, right? So like we saw before, usually anya is used, right? It just rolls off the, well, I'm not gonna say that's why it is, but from what I've seen, it seems to roll off the tongue a little better. You know what I mean? A lot of times, the way our phrases are set up is to be everything that you see in the language is to be practical. Again, the point of this language is to be succinct and as straightforward and practical as possible. All right, but again, you'll hardly see but it's important to recognize, because a lot of times, because it's not used as often, we'll just assume that it's a part of the root word. Or what I've seen brothers do, they'll just automatically go to the middle of the word and be like, oh, this must be my root word. It's not correct, right? Which is why clicking that concordance code, Salakia, clicking that concordance code does come in handy, because that's not a bad guess. You know what I mean? Just assuming that the middle of the word is the root word, but you make sure you're correct by clicking the concordance code, right? So after you do that, instead of going here for your root word, you'll go here. And then now you can recognize these two as prepositions. So wa'a Aisha, wa'a Aisha, right? And then Salaki, a thumb, right? Salaki. Salakia. So this is saying that this is the author we was talking about earlier. Salakia. I'll have to ask about this as well. All right. If I'm not mistaken, I have to double check, but if I'm not mistaken, that ma at the end is to say there. And the ath is connecting what Rebecca is asking Jacob to bring to her, and what she's gonna do with it. I would have to double check and make sure. But I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that next week. All right. Mata, like your mata aimyum, right? All right. Mata aim. Let me see. It's not a word that's used very often. You know what I mean? So you can see it'll show you the amount of times it's used. So total in the old, new, and or it's like in total in the scriptures, it's used 8 times. So it's not something that you see often. All right. And then la, it's like a la abba yaka, right? La, 2. And a lot of times, you know what I mean, reading this red at the bottom, it'll help you get it'll help you kind of work through the phrase. If it's difficult to kind of work through, if it's difficult to tell how you should pronounce it, you just glance down at that red at the bottom, and you know the word father is in there. So Abba is father. So you see Abba right here. So now you know Abba is your root word, right? And notice I didn't click on the concordance code. You know what I mean? I could, but you know what I mean? I could, you know what I mean, if that's where you at with it, you know what I mean, keep doing that. But over time, you'll just be able to work through it, you know what I mean, just by using what you already know, right? So we already know Abba is father. So now, boom, this is your root word, Abba, right? And you pronounce it just like that, right? So now La Abba, to father, right? La Abba, to father, and then Yaka means you or your, right? Or Salaki, let me break it down like this. Ka is a possessive that means you or your. Salaki. Ka is a possessive that means you or your. And that ya, like we reviewed the last couple weeks, that ya is a buffer. You know what I mean? It's used to just indicate possession. That's all. That's what it's used for. You know what I mean? We're used to seeing that ya at the end of a word that just means me or my. But when you see it in between a root word and a possessive, it's just used to indicate possession, right? So, and it's not used all the time, but it's used sometimes. It's just important. Again, it's important to just be able to recognize it, all right? That's why you well, we'll see more of it as well, I'm sure. You know what I mean, as we read on. But that's the concept that you're going to see a lot of, and that's a concept that we've reviewed often, right? What I recommended for brothers to do, like every time if you go back a couple classes or any of the review classes that we've done for the prepositions, possessives, and all of that, which we've done quite a few. But when you go back to those classes, when you see me writing them down, I'll kind of circle or underline, or you know what I mean, I'll mark certain prepositions, put a star next to them, just to indicate that they may have a particular function aside from its general meaning, right? Like what we just, like for example, like what I got on the board, just you know what I mean, at a glance. I got a couple of them underlined. If you was in class live, you already, you know what I mean, you already noticed, but I got a couple underlined. Those are just the ones that you see the most often, right? The ones that are not underlined, like we talked about with the that's the one that, you know what I mean, those are the ones that's not really used as often, but it's also important. It's still important to know, right? Then I got a couple of them in boxes, right? The ones in boxes, or it's like the ones in boxes, just shows that when you add this preposition to a particular root word, it creates a new root word. All right. So that's what that box indicates. And then last but not least, the ones with asterisk beside it. The ones with the asterisk beside it, it's one of those ones. There's a couple possessives that kind of like for example, the ya. If you see, or it's like your prepositions. You see a ya as a preposition, or so like not as a preposition, but at the beginning of a root word. Then sometimes when you add a preposition to a root word beginning with ya, that ya will drop off and be replaced. Instead of you adding a preposition to a root word that starts with ya, that preposition will replace the ya. You know what I mean? Not sure why, but that's just a concept that you do want to get familiar with. So when you see it in the scriptures, you don't get tripped up. Same with the na. Root words that start with na, like the example I always use is nathun. Nathun means to give, right? But you add a ma to the word nathun instead of saying manathun, which would mean directly translated from gift or from give, from the word give. That ma replaces the na. So instead of saying manathun, it'll be mathun instead, right? Which means gift. So it goes from give to gift. And then you add a ya to nathun instead of yanathun to say he gives, right? Ya as a preposition means he, right? Instead of saying he gives manathun, it'll be yathun. Or Salakia, what I say? Yanathun, Salakia. Instead of saying Yanathun, it'll be Yathun, which means to allow or to permit, if I'm not mistaken. All right. But I just said all that to say, Salakia, I want to get out too far off track, but I said all that to say there's a particular way, especially when it comes to the basics, right? There's a particular way that you can take your notes to, you know what I mean, give yourself a reminder of certain things. All right. Because as we read these concepts, right, like what we just went over, the yakah, right, that ya isn't going to trip you up because you got it written in your notes. Like, okay, this functions like this usually, right? This functions in this way, right? Like, for example, using a ya, right? The ya at the end of a word usually indicates a possessive, meaning me or my, but it also just indicates possession in general, right? So again, I encourage brothers, you know what I mean? You should already have these in your notes, but just as you're reviewing, I would go back and just, you know what I mean, make those marks and make those indicators just for your own sake. You know what I mean? Everybody studies and learns different. So, you know what I mean? Your way might, or my way might not work for you and vice versa. But I encourage brothers to just do something. Make sure you're doing your due diligence so that we don't, you know what I mean? We don't have to spend 3 or 4 classes, you know what I mean, reviewing the same things. All right. All right. So moving on. All right. So Ka Ashar. Did I read all of this? Oh, Salaki, yeah. Okay, Ka Ashar, right? Ashar, one of those root words you should be real familiar with. I believe we saw it earlier in a previous verse, but Ashar means that which, who, depending on the context. I'm gonna click the concordance code just to make sure I'm correct. Boom, we just went over it. So, you know what I mean? Just remembering what we went over before. You know what I mean? I know I'm correct. You know what I mean? As the men above me always say, never forget what you know, trying to learn something new. All right. So, can we move this out the way? All right. So, Ashar, you know what I mean? Because we see it so many times, used in so many, not so many, but because we see it so many times, you know what I mean? It's just kind of one of those words that's burned into my memory. So when I see it, I know how to pronounce it. I know what it means depending on the context. All right. So Ka Ashar, Ka is a preposition that means like or as. Right? So direct translation, ka ashar, like that. Right? And then ahab is love. Right? Right. So basically, Rebecca is saying to bring, telling Jacob to bring her these animals so that she can prepare them in the way that Salakia Isaac likes it. You know what I mean? Let's see. All right, next phrase. Let's like your next verse. And again, I'm gonna go ahead and read it. I'm gonna go ahead and read it through, go backtrack, and then I'm gonna break it down. All right. So Waha Ba'ath. Salakia. Waha Ba'ath. La Abayaka Wa Akal Ba'Ibar Ashar Yabarakka. All right. La Panya Mawathwa. Right. And just to, you know what I mean, just to, you know what I mean, give brothers a heads up. I'm emphasizing certain parts of the phrase on purpose. You know what I mean? If you read it straight through, it'll be Salakia. Waha Ba'ath La Abayaka. Salakia, I'm still emphasizing. But as you get more familiar, more comfortable with the language, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be, you know what I mean, dramatizing the phrases. Like you hear brothers reading through the prayers during Sabbath service. They just going right through it. Abba now, Shabbat Shemayim, Qadash, Hayah, Shemka, Yahweh, Malakukat, Taba'ah, Ratazaka, Kawah, Hayah. They just going right through it. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just flowing off the tongue. But like for teaching purposes, you know what I mean? I'm emphasizing it to separate the possessive from the root word, or it's like the preposition and the possessive from the root word. All right. So Waha, Ba'ath, La Abayaka, Wa Akal, Ba'Ibar, Ashar, Wa Barakka, La Panya, Mawathwa. All right. All right, so real quick, we're going to break this down. And we're in verse 10, you know what I mean, for brothers who may be just tuning in. We in Genesis chapter 27. It's like your brothers and sisters. And them sisters be watching as well. But Genesis chapter 27, verse 10. We expand the screen. All right. So Wa Ha Ba'ath. Salakia Ba'atha. Salakia. Waha Ba'atha. Salakia. That was my mistake. So Wa means and, Ha means he. Ba'a is a shortened version of, you can guess it from what I just broke down, Bawa'a. This is another example of when we add words, or when we're trying to get straight to the, or when we're trying to just avoid confusion or redundancy, that wa drops off in the middle. So again, that's why shalom is incorrect. You know what I mean? In the way that brothers use it. Shalom can be used, but if you're just saying in general peace, like how we say peace to one another, you know what I mean? You wouldn't say shalom. That's not the correct context. You know what I mean? You're walking around and it's saying piecing. Like it makes it a we use it as a, let me see if I can explain it like this. We use it as like a noun, right? Just piece, like an idea. Like a noun is just a person, place, or thing, or idea, right? It's just peace. You know what I mean? We want you to have peace, right? But you say piecing, or you say, so like you say shalom, now you're saying piecing. Now you're turning peace into a verb or an action, when, you know what I mean, it's not being used correctly, all right? And this is just an example just to back up that point. You know what I mean? I pray brothers, you know what I mean, get off that shalom. It just sounds emasculine. And you know what I mean? And part of me know that brothers, you know what I mean, this is just me, I'm just talking right now, but part of me knows that brothers know that it's wrong to say shalom because they gotta say it twice. They know it don't sound right. So they gotta say shalom, shalom. Like it don't sound right. You know what I mean? Shalom. You know what I mean? But this is just another example just showing that concept in practical usage. All right. Again, so you click on that concordance code. The root word is ba-wa-ah. So there's a wa in the middle. But again, to avoid redundancy or confusion, that wa in the middle of ba salaki, and that wa in the middle of ba-wa-ah drops off. So now it's just ba-ah. Salaki. So I'm reading again. Waha ba'a the. So and he, that's like it. And the ba'a means to salaki. Let me go back to it. Ba'a means to come. Okay. Come or go. Right? Or to bring or take, depending on the, you know what I mean, the context of how it's being used. All right. Ba'a the. Right. So Rebecca is telling Isaac to, and you will bring it. That tha at the end just means salakia. Actually, this is perfect example of what we were just talking about. You know what I mean? With the tenses. That tha, you know what I mean? That tha at the end is indicating you know what I mean, the concept that we went over you know what I mean, last week, right? How to conjugate this verb in its proper tense. So when she's saying you will take it, all right? And as we went over last week, when you're saying you will, that tha will go at the end, right? So waha ba'a tha, right? Next, la abba yaka, same thing that we just read in the previous verse. La means two, abba is the root word meaning father, yaka, ka is the possessive meaning you, or it's like, yeah, you, and then the ya is a buffer, right? So in root words, or it's like not in root words, in phrases, you might see ya wa, ya ka, ya nawa, ya thumb, ya come, ya thumb, ya hum, you know what I mean? At the in between a suffix or possessive, you'll see that ya just as a buffer. You know what I mean? Just to help the phrase, just to help the phrase flow a tad bit better. All right. So la abayaka, right? Wa akal. Akal means to eat, right? You know from that concordance code, right? Akal means to eat, right? Wa akal and eat, right? Ba ibar. Let me check on this because ibar, depending on how it's used, usually means ancient. Ibawar. Let me see. Okay. So it looks like in this context, or in this, the way it's being used here, it's basically to say because or for a reason, in order, for the sake of, because again, Rebecca is giving Jacob these instructions for a reason, to get to yield a result. So she's saying, bring me all of this. I'm going to prepare it. You're going to bring it to him so that for a reason. And the reason is so that he can get the blessing as it's rightfully due to him, instead of his thieving, dishonest brother. All right. And then Ashar, that, like we've been talking about all night. Yah Barak Ka. Barak, we should be familiar with this. Barak means blessed. Yah is a preposition that means he, right? Yah Barak means he bless. And then Ka is a possessive that means you. All right. This is an example like we was talking about before. Let me make sure y'all can see this. Like before, up here where it says La Abayaka, that Yah is there as a buffer. But again, that Yah isn't always there. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Both are correct though. So if it said Yah Barakyaka, that would be correct also. But it just depends on, what your intention is. If you're trying to, it just depends. So Yah Barak Ka, right? Me personally, well, never mind. I ain't gonna go there. But moving on. All right. So next phrase, La Panya, right? Panya. Panya typically means face. A lot of times it'll be used as before or in front of, to face, right? La Panya, right? You see that together. It means to face or before, in front of, or Salakia. Or Salakia, before, yeah. Before or precede, to proceed, right? Which basically means before or in front of. All right. And I said proceed just because, just to put it in perspective, just to make it, more practical to understand. All right. Because they're trying to do this so that Jacob can get his birthright and his blessing from his father before or preceding his death. Which goes into the next phrase, Mawath wa, right? Mawath means death or die. You click the concordance code, Mawath, exactly what it says, death. Right. Now, again, sometimes, depending on what's attached to it, you'll see Math without that wa in the middle. I ain't gonna beat a dead horse, but again, that's just another example. Sometimes that wa will be there. Like, for example, it's not too much being added to this phrase. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it'll just drop off anyway. But So in this in this example, that wa didn't drop off. But sometimes you will see moth. That's just a shortened version of mawath, which means death. All right. It just goes to show you how the language is used, right? Mawath what? Wa at the end means he, his, or it, right? So his death, before his death. Let's see, verse 11. It's probably gonna be the last one. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and read it through, and I'm gonna go back. All right. Waya Amor Yaikwab Al Rabakwa Amo Wa. All right. Ha Slakia. Hana, right? I shall. Achya, Salakia, Ayash, Sha'ir, Wa Anakia, Salakia, Ayash, Halak, Salakia, Halak. Let's see. All right. All right, starting from the top. Waya Amar. That waya, you know what I mean? You're gonna see that at the when something is being stated. Again, this is the qual stem. This is an indicator of the qual stem, or I believe it's called the stative stem. Basically, because again, you know what I mean? This Bible is just a book of records, a bunch of you know what I mean, bunch of records that are, you know what I mean, the scribes are just telling you what happened, and this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. They're just stating what happened. All right. So you see waya, that's just the qual stem or the stative stem. All right. Waya amar. All right. Amar just means said. Ya iqua. Right. And I'm reading it for a reason. Ya iqua is Jacob. Jacob's name means supplanter. Right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check.
Correct.
Okay, Mosaic Christ. But it's built off of a root word, iquab. Iquab means supplant. Yah iquab means he supplants or supplanter. So that's how that name is built. Again, anytime you see not anytime, but a lot of times when you see Yah at the beginning of a brother's name, it means he, right? Yah Ramak, his javelin. Yah Bakan, he is tested. Yah Hawashai, he delivers or deliverer. It's off the top of my head, but that's usually how it's broken down. So iquab is just a root word. So the word iquab doesn't mean supplant. You know what I mean? That's I know it's easy to think that. Iquab does not mean supplant. Iquab means supplant. Iquab means he supplant. All right, or supplanter. All right. I'll, right? Or so like all, and la. You know what I mean? It's not Allah, because you see under here it says two. So when it means two, it's all. Right? And then Rabakwa. Yakan. Rabakwa is Rebecca's name in the Hebrew. And I said, again, I was reading it dramatic, you know what I mean? Just so we can know exactly how it's pronounced and why it's pronounced that way. And I'm going to break it down. So I said, Amma wa. You know what I mean? Because what we know about root words and possessives, you know that you pronounce the root word. You pronounce the root word, and then you add your possessive at the end. And then what we also know about root words is usually the last two characters of a root word, you pronounce the sound together, right? Like here, like we was talking about ah and la next to each other. Instead of saying Allah, to say two is all. So you pronounce those together. That ah and la sound comes together and makes all. So a lot of times, and I'll see brothers they'll just automatically fuse these two characters. So they'll want to say wa. That's incorrect. And you know that's incorrect because of the root word that's here, mother, right? Abba is father, Amma is mother. So you're just adding, again, you're using what you already know to learn something new. So now you're using what you already know. You know, mother is Amma, and now you just add your possessive. Amma what? Right? His mother. Right? Hana. Right? Hana. I'm gonna click on this concordance code. Or Salakia. Let me see. Okay, so Hana means to look or behold. right? All right, it's one of the what's it called? It's one of the Salakia. The what's it called? The pictograph, Salakia, right? The Ha, right? If you look at the ancient Lashawan Qadash characters, all the characters indicate something. You know what I mean? They all indicate or depict something. That's the point of a pictograph, right? So Hana, all right? And then Aisha is Esau. Esau's name in the Hebrew. Ak, Ya, right? This is the same concept as what we was talking about in the previous phrase. You know what I mean? Well, you know the root word here is ak, or because if you look down here, I mean, sometimes you don't have to click on the concordance code because you should already know, right? So you just look down at the red, you know, brother is there. We use brother all the time. So brother is ak. So ak is just ak with the suffix at the end. Ak ya, my brother, right? Ayash, man, right? Ayash, man. Should be familiar with that. Sha'ir. Sha'ir, right? Sha'ir. You know, I mean, we went over body parts in the past in a previous lesson couple months ago. You know what I mean? And as have other brothers all over in different zones. You know what I mean? If you're not familiar with these, you know what I mean, particular groups of root words, I suggest you go, you know what I mean, go on YouTube, put in ISUPK Lashawan Qadash, and then that particular topic, and whether it's in Killeen or another zone, you know what I mean, it'll give you all the, you know what I mean, it'll give you all the root words pertaining to a particular subject. You know what I mean? These brothers do an excellent job, you know what I mean, putting together these lessons, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, to help to make the Lashawan Qadash, you know what I mean, easier to remember. So you got brothers have done lessons on, you know what I mean, the body parts, brothers have done lessons on colors, numbers, the pictographs like we just talked about, you know what I mean? So it's easier to retain these root words, all right? And sha'ir is it will be on the body parts lesson, all right? Sha'ir just means hair, all right? Sha'ir. Wa ankaya, all right? Wa is a preposition that means and. Let me see how I can break this down. All right, this just means ankaya means something that's not used often, but it could also be used to say I as well. All right. Wa ankaya, ayash, man, and then khalak. Khalak means smooth. Khalak. So Jacob is saying to his mother, well, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, right? So ayash sha'ir, man of hair, right? And it's like your wa'an kaya, ayash khalak, and I am a man smooth, right? That's what he's saying. All right. If you notice, when just like you see in a lot of languages, the what's it called? The subject goes first and then the description. All right. So whereas in English you would say red truck, for example, the description will go first and then the object or the subject will go after. In the Lashawan Qadash, the subject goes first and then the description. So instead of saying red truck, it will be truck red, or truck that is red. All right. So that's one thing to keep in mind. All right, we're gonna end it right there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the class. You know what I mean? Make sure you practicing and reading through the Lashawan Qadash. Make sure you getting these concepts under your belt. You know what I mean? I recommend, brothers and sisters, if you haven't done it already, you know what I mean, go through the, you know what I mean, the ISUPK, you know what I mean, these ISUPK classes, the Lashawan Qadash, and go through these topics, these concepts that we were just talking about a second ago. So, and I promise you, I know it might be, you know what I mean, I know it might be a little tedious for some brothers and sisters, but you know what I mean, you go through these concepts, you go through these specific lessons, and then now it'll just help you retain certain root words. So when you see them, you know how to pronounce them, you know how to use them. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the point of us doing these classes every week is to eventually be able to use our language instead of using our oppressor's language. You know what I mean? Whether you, no matter what tribe you come from, whether you Haitian, Dominican, Mexican, Guatemalan, you know what I mean, Cuban, whether you so-called African American, you know what I mean, whatever your native language or whatever, whatever your first language is, you know what I mean. Instead of using the language that your oppressor forced on you, we can go back to using our language. All right, which is the Lashawan Qadash. All right. So with that, say I madium, which means to stand. We'll give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Vidro Madra Shabbat. I madium, Marat. Yahaba Shim Yaw Shabrakta. Yagi Matas. Sorry, we're gonna turn to face the sisters. Give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Individual Madra Shabbat. I madium, Marat. Yahweh Shemar Latan Ba Shim Yaw Shab. Yagi Matah. Dismiss.